Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thanks for tuning in. I've cleaned the garage, or garage, as Monica yeah, pointed out, garage. Well, I'm Welsh, so we say garage. Yeah, I've cleaned it up, so I got a bit of room, I've got my bench back, I got, yeah, sorted. It's about 3:30 in the morning now, and we're going through a bit of a heat wave in Britain. Nothing compared to what America and Canada have had, where they had that heat bubble or something, and it was just beyond the temperatures. But for Britain, we just can't cope with the heat when it comes along. We don't have much sun, and when it does come along, it's the same with the weather. It's either all or nothing, and when the sun comes along, it just blasts you. And today is just is beyond. Now, my living room is the coldest room in the house. It's north facing, obviously, and at the moment at 3:30 in the morning it is 28 degrees Celsius. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, sorry. And upstairs it's just over 30 degrees Celsius, and just can't sleep, just cannot sleep, can't do anything in the day because it's just so hot, it just dripping. And so I thought, what's the point in lying down, can't sleep, make a video. So today's video is about the Humble plug, and there is a difference between the British plug and American and European plug. We use the alternate current, AC, and I believe that America and Europe use the direct current. So with the alternate current, we've got the three pin there, and the live goes to that one, the neutral goes to that one, and the earth goes to the top one. And if you're in America, you'll probably, or Europe, you'll probably recognize the 2-pin. So anyway, I was thinking, okay, get a lot of plugs. I've got a box full there that I've got to get to. Now, when they started off with electricity in Britain, here comes another story. And if you're new to my channel, I talk a lot, but it's not only that. I like to go into things in a different way and understand different metals, and yeah, and with actual things that I'm taking apart, I like to try and work out how they are put together. It's easy taking it apart, just get an angle grinder on most things, but it's how they're put together and how they work. And I'm not mechanically minded, no engineering background, I'm just a hobby scrapper, and it just intrigues me. So with electricity in Britain, it started around, we'll say about 1900. We'll round it off to a nice even number. And I believe it was a Scotsman went over to America, and cut a long story short, he came back, and then yeah, Parliament and all this sort of thing. Yeah, electricity is great, get it sorted, mate. And that's how it started in Britain. And it grew in certain areas, and I believe that Scotland was one of the first places to have it, only in small areas. and they then developed it more, so that by time, I believe it was 1938, parts of Wales as well as England, they had access to electricity, which was very fortunate because of the Second World War. But it was very touch and go, you know, all the electrics, you have power cuts and that sort of thing. And a bill was passed through Parliament, and I believe it was 1947, and that is when the National Grid was named the National Grid, as in all the workings, all the pylons, all the cables, everything. And gradually you had your power stations and then your substations, and it developed from there. And they tried to work it out mathematically how many or how much electricity was needed by, say, 1965. And the number that they put for 1965, they achieved the amount of people using that in about 1960, so they had to speed things up. And I remember growing up in the 70s, and I'm sure I've said in another video, I'm terrified of electric, because there was just so many fires from electrical goods that they just weren't wired properly, and it was dodgy, and we kept on having cutouts and everything. But that's basically how it started and to where we've got now. And from now on they're trying to get it greener, which is a bit farcical, because yeah, we've got wind generated turbines around Britain and we've got solar, but there is a story of a village that it was only last year or the year before they raised enough money to pay for the installation of a hydroelectric means of supplying the village with electric, so they didn't have to, or they wouldn't have to pay for the electric so much, and they had it all in place, everything bish bash bosh. And when it actually came to it, they couldn't do it because the electricity board came along and the transformer, we'll call it a substation, it couldn't cope with the hydroelectric power being connected to it because it was too much power, and they refused to build a new one to cope with what these people had thought of and raised money for. So how annoying is that when we're all told to be green? And yeah, don't get me started. So what was I talking about? The plug, wasn't I? Yeah. I talk so much. So when plugs, when I was younger, there's a couple of sorts. Now between the 3 pins there's one screw, Phillips screw. We'll take that off, and inside, I think I better pan you down to the workbench so we can have a closer look and you can understand what I'm on about. So that is the inside of the plug. That is the outside. 3 pins there. So as I said, live, neutral, earth. And if we have a look on the inside, blue goes to the left when you're connecting your wires in there. We're always told in physics, blue to the left because L in blue. Brown goes to the right because of R for right. and then they always said the yellow green one straight up. So they're connected inside the three pieces of brass, and we undo those 3 screws that hold in the wires in place. Now, because this plug has only got that one screw in the middle, we have 2 black going that way to grip this wire. So once I take that out and I've undone the wires, that wire should undo. All the wires will come out there. So if I try and get that in focus, blue, brown, and the thing. But what we're interested in with the plug is the amount of brass. So we've got the 3 pins, and on the old plugs they were easy. You just lift your hand and basically they would come out 1, 2, and the third one is connected to the fuse. So we'll take the fuse out. Now with the fuse we've got 2 ends and they're brass, but that is made up of some sort of powder. I don't know what it actually is. I'll smash it on the floor now. I'll get it out. I don't want to wake the neighbours. Oh. Now that I've smashed it, we've got the 2 ends, but they're being held together by a piece of wire. And that wire, I read somewhere or watched somebody's video, and it apparently is silver. I don't know. And if you do know, please let me know in the comments. And all I do is get an old bradawl and I just get the ends out of all the rubbish and everything, and then we'll be able to weigh how much brass is in. Where are you? That way, yeah. I can see you now. How much brass, and there's a little bit of copper, is in a plug. Now that plug had 1 screw on it. This one has got a main screw, and again we've got the 3 pins. So it's got the main screw in the middle, but down here we've got 2 smaller screws, and what they do, they cover, or they lock a piece of plastic in place that holds this wire, the main wire cable, in place. Now I'll take it apart and it's all exactly the same as the other plug, and now you can see that the cable is loose, and that piece of plastic, that white plastic, was holding that in place. Now for quite a few years we've had these rubberized plugs, excuse me, with a rubber end, and they are an absolute nuisance to take apart. The fuses are easy to get out because they are just, yeah, they're there in the middle, just under that cover. But to get those 3 pins out, it's only Snobby Scrap Picker with his Snobby Soup, where you boil these plugs to loosen this hard rubber, that you can actually pull those out and get to the brass and get what we got out of the first plug. That's the only way we can get it out of one of these rubberized plugs. Now, the reason that they made them rubber is to make them safer, because years ago people, when plugs had this fitting, this plastic fitting, or like the first one, it had the 2 black pieces going into a V and clamping the cable. That cable used to come down and used to basically become loose. So it put more pressure on those screws holding the wires in, and gradually over time, if you didn't notice that had slipped, well, those wires could quite easily then become disturbed, come out to the screws, and you got problems. So now what we've got to try and work out is how much brass is in a plug. Okay. Sweating so much, I do apologise. Right, got my scales, got my brass. Let's put it all on. "21 grams approximately, is flitting between 20 and 21, and that is in imperial 0.7 ounces, not 1 ounce, 0.7 of 1 ounce. Yeah, I made that clear. Let's have a look at the copper. Copper. Okay, 10. 1 gram. Doesn't register as ounces, sorry. Excuse me. So that's how much brass and copper you'll get from a standard British plug. And for people who are watching, I'd be interested to know, with direct current in America, I think it's Canada, yeah, and Europe, do you have fuses in your plugs, or do you just have a trip switch where if something goes wrong with the electrical plug or whatever, that the trip switch just goes? Or do you have fuses in the actual plug? And also, why in Britain, I'd be interested to know, we have mobile phones, cell phones in America, and in Britain we got the 3 pins to go into the plug in the wall, whatever, but the top plug pin is plastic, so only the live and the neutral are connected to the electric, not the earth. Now, why I'm interested is because with central heating, when I had it fitted, they basically had to earth it. They run quite a bit of cable actually. Now I understand that the boiler, yeah, you put the electric on and you've got the gas boiler, but I've never lived in a house where it's had to be earthed. Obviously it's something that is British standards, so if anybody knows why central heating and the pipes have to be earthed, I'd be interested to know. So if you'd be kind enough to leave a comment if you have the answers to my questions, I'd be very grateful. So I'm sorry I'm a bit tired and sweaty and all the rest of it, but yeah, that's how much brass and copper is in a basic British plug. So look after yourselves and I'll see you soon. Bye now.